Aloha and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani and this is your astro forecast for this week, August 22nd all the way to August 29th. So the big topic of this week is going to be Mercury, because Mercury is going to be in a lot of aspects and Mercury is changing signs. But first, I want to say happy solar return to all you Virgos out there. The sun is in Virgo now, so I just wanted to give you guys a happy birthday. So Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and that's one of the reasons why Mercury is going to be a big topic this week. We are in mutable energy right now with the sun being in Virgo. Virgo is all about taking all of that big, beautiful, creative energy that we had in the sign of Leo and turning it inward and being a little bit more meticulous and being more specific and taking something large and breaking it down into smaller pieces so they're more palatable and workable and doable. It's about improving on the things that you have. There's also going to be a little bit more of a focus on like health and wellness, because that tends to happen around Virgo. So if you're feeling like, let me do a cleanse or let me like purge because you partied a lot over the summer, or you know that you're going to have a big holiday season with all the sweets and all the food, it's a really good time to lean into some exercise, lean into, eating more fruits and vegetables, drinking a lot more water, juicing, green smoothies, all of those types of things, also working with herbs, plant-based medicines, all of those types of things kind of fall underneath that. So if you're drawn to those things during this time, it would be a really good time to experiment with some herbs and see what works for your body and what are things that can really support you. Virgos have a tendency to have something to do with animals, so you might find yourself caretaking an animal, maybe you're pet sitting, or maybe you're just volunteering like on a farm or something with animals that have been displaced. And then we have Venus trining Saturn. So that's going to be August 21st all the way into the 27th, though it perfected on the 22nd or 23rd, depending upon where you are in the world. So again, we chatted about this last week, so you can definitely watch last week's video, or I'll put it up here in the box above. We're going to go a little bit more into detail about it though, because Venus is in the sign of Libra, which is her home sign. So she's there in all of her glory, kind of bringing beautiful things together, really good time for artists, really wanting to harmonize and make things better and okay, and bringing some justice to where things have felt like they were not really seen, or people or situations that haven't had justice. Saturn is in Aquarius right now. Aquarius is one of the homes of Saturn as well as Capricorn. And so both planets are sitting in their home sign having this really nice conversation, which is a trine. And so typically more of the beneficial things come out of this. Things that have to do with arts and beauty, and things that are old that maybe are getting renovated, or like, artwork that has been shelved or curated coming back out again, working on projects that you've been working on for a really long time, finally them coming to see the light of day, dusting them off and just putting them out into the world, whether that is your writing projects, your filmmaking projects, your art projects, all of the things that are of Venus or Venusian things that are old, or that you maybe have gotten some input on from a sage mentor who walked you through something. It could be an older mentor coming into your life. Whenever we have Venus having conversations with Saturn, or even like Venus and Capricorn, if you have that in your chart, could be attracted to somebody that's older than you, somebody that's older that's attracted to a younger person. It could be the beauty of youth juxtaposed with the wisdom of age, and how those two come together and imprint on each other. Relationships, because Venus does rule our relationships, our romantic relationships as well as our interpersonal relationships. It could be building something with somebody that you had at work, or it could be also connecting with someone at work and then building a business outside of that as well. So, Saturnian things oftentimes have to do with work or work-related type things. It could be a long-term relationship that has maybe had a little bit of some struggles, and you're coming together and harmonizing and getting some counseling and really just being able to smooth out some of the edges where things have been kind of cool in the relationship, or they haven't been necessarily like the most loving or the most intimate. So using this transit to kind of build that bridge towards intimacy can be really good if you have a relationship that cooled off a bit. It could be also someone moving away, so having a long distance relationship or falling in love with somebody, and then being in a long distance relationship, whether you chose to be or someone's leaving so you have to be. Some of the challenges that come up with this is complacent in love life, of a little distance, a little bit of a cooling off. Like I mentioned before, boredom in the bedroom, boredom in the love life, or something that can come up during this time. And just, using this transit to find a way to reconnect can be really good if you think things have been cooled off or things are just not as hot and heavy as they used to be. Saturn a lot of times brings up a lot of fears. So fear of intimacy, but overcoming the fear, again, when we have a trine aspect with these two planets, the challenging part is it's challenging, but in the end, everything generally will kind of work out. So you meet somebody, but you were in a bad relationship before, so you're not feeling very trusting, which is super Saturnian. You got a lot of boundaries, a lot of walls up. So someone's coming up and they're kind of easing down the walls, and they're, confronting you with the fact of a relationship. And for some people, that's very scary, depending upon where they came from. So getting over that, or getting the help, or taking the time that you need to trust somebody, or someone allowing you the time that you need to be able to do that, is another thing that can come up. Fears around art, fears around releasing your art, fears around like the project that you've been working on, the rewrite for your book, the revamp of your website, all of those, any of those types of things that come up that you've been working on creatively, your creative things in your business, the creative things in your creative life, the fear of putting it out there, the fear of putting yourself out there, the things that are intimate and close to you, putting it out there, the fear of, you could have maybe a relationship, this is more Pluto if it's hidden, but, coming out and saying, oh, I'm in, this relationship, or I just got engaged, or whatever, that type of thing. So there's a lot of fear around that sometimes, about like letting the lovely things in your life out for various different reasons, for fear of losing them, fear of judgment, all of that type of stuff. So Mercury is opposing Neptune. This is going to be happening the 23rd all the way to the 27th. It will be perfecting on the 24th. And some of the things that come up with that, Mercury, as we know, is in Virgo. Mercury's been there co-present with Mars for a while, really kind of putting a lot of energy into the grind that some of us really needed in order to get things done. Now it's forming an opposition with Neptune in Pisces, and this is going to have a very different kind of feeling. It's going to feel a lot like how Mercury, when it was in Pisces earlier this year, with kind of like the La La Land, like, Wonderland kind of feeling, but also like a little bit delusional. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But it also could be really good for if you've been focusing and grinding and working really hard, because you would have had the energy for that with Mars and Mercury conjunct, especially last week. Now you're coming to a place where maybe you hit a wall with that, and you're just like, oh, what do I do next? Or what is my next move? So this is where Neptune comes in with the Neptunian energy and allows you to find a creative way to get around maybe a block that you had, especially if you were just like feeling like you're at your wit's end and you're forcing something to move and it's just not working. This is where creativity can come in and be very supportive and have you see another way, because that's essentially what this is. And I mean, and you have that anyway with Mercury in Virgo, because Virgo is a mutable sign, even though it's an Earth. It is mutable. So it's like, how can we be flexible, like, too, as we're, focusing and getting things done? So some of the positive things with this transit, having an open mind, seeing patterns, high levels of spirituality, patterns in terms of like triple numbers, like 1111 and 222 and 333, all of those type of spiritual things. You can be very open to being very open to creative things, creative ways of organizing yourself. A little story, like I tried to do the bullet journaling thing, like an organization. It's a beautiful way to organize. That to me seems very kind of like Mercury opposite Neptune. I'm going to organize, but I'm going to do it in this beautiful, like, interesting kind of way. For me, that didn't work because I'm too much of a creative person that I just got caught up in the art of it, and I actually wasn't organizing. I was just like doing all the colors in the glitter pen. So I have to organize different. I still do use glitter pens, but I can't do all the stickers and all the shapes and all of that, because that is just no. But it can be finding ways around, like, how can you find the fun in the mundane things that you have to do? So it really does remind me of kind of like that Mary Poppins, on how can we make cleaning up fun? How can we organize things? Like, what music are we playing to get us in the mood for whatever it is that we're doing, like purging our emails or whatever? How can we make exercise fun? How can we do all of that? So it's not this like kind of heavy mundane thing. Because sometimes, Virgo is dealing with the mundane. And if we can make it a little magical, sometimes that just feels better and it's more interesting. Some of the challenges that come up with that is really just mental confusion and lack of organization, lack of being able to really express yourself and what you mean specifically and how you're trying to, come across to people. There can be a blurring of facts. There can be a purposeful obscuring of facts and information. And so that you feel like you can't move because you're overloaded with information and it's too much and you have to pull back a little bit and see things and separate them out. So it can feel very confusing for a lot of people during this time because it is an opposition. You're kind of like going back and forth with this, like I'm trying to organize and be very specific and pull things out. And then like, on the other hand, Neptune and Pisces is just like looking at the whole, not wanting to separate, wanting everything to be one and have this kind of sort of beautiful, like frilly kind of way of looking at it, which also feels good, but also maybe is not like workable all of the time. So balancing those two energies are going to be important. So we're ending this with Mercury changing signs. Mercury is going to be entering the sign of Libra. That's going to be August 9th all the way to November the 5th. Now that is a long time that Mercury will be in Libra, and that long time is because Mercury will be retrograde during like a big chunk of that time, September 26th all the way to October 18th. So that's a long time. So we want to really pay attention to the time where Mercury is actually trining Saturn, trining Jupiter. There's going to be some kind of important moments, even though all the planets are retrograde at that point, or will be retrograde at that point. We want to pay attention to that time because we're going to be revisiting them during the retrograde. Mercury, Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus wants cohesiveness. It wants beauty. It wants softness. It wants harmony. It wants luxury. It wants to make things harmonious, for things to sound good. Mercury sits kind of a little bit more in a place where it's about separation. It's about like, what makes this sound good? What makes this taste good? What is the reasoning behind this? How can we switch this up? How, it kind of likes to pull things apart, where Venus likes to bring things together and make them cohesive and taste good and delicious. It will be this interesting energy simply because you will have positive things that come out of that. For example, language and poetry that soothes, things that sound beautiful, seductive words. Really good time for poets, really good time for people who are writers or who are creating things, for singers, for people who are communicating in a beautiful way. If you're a business and you have gorgeous visuals, or if you have voiceovers that you're doing for a commercial, if you're a podcaster, if you are anybody that's using art in any way to kind of bring people into your business, your voice, you want to really pay attention to voice and things that sound beautiful, that sound harmonious, music that's accompanying you, that it meshes and it's beautiful. It's a really nice time for all of those things, and especially if you're drawing people into you, in terms of your business. I say that this time could potentially be a masterclass on how to be less offensive because, like there is this harmonious aspect. It doesn't want to, Libra at this time, when Mercury is there, it doesn't want to cause a fight. It definitely will invoke thought and it will be interested in all of the similarities, as opposed to interested in all of the things that make them dissimilar. It's like, how can I find harmony? I see all the separation, but I'm trying to harmonize all of it. Reminds me a lot of, I think it was Joseph Campbell who wanted to come up with the idea of the mono myth. Like, here's all the myths in the world. How can we bring them all together and make something that is workable, that is a myth that everybody has? There can be a lot of wanting to avoid arguments and avoid tension and avoid problems that come up. There is also the other side of that too, is just wanting to hear all sides, wanting to honestly get all of the information before you take action, which can be incredibly beneficial. The challenge with that though is difficulty in like making decisions. When you want to hear all sides, when you want to make sure that everything is fair, sometimes it takes a long time to get any action happening or to make a decision because you're so busy listening to everybody and weighing all of the information and then trying to dole out what's fair and all of that. And that sometimes can be a problem. Now, I think this is going to be a really interesting time period politically because I'm wondering like what is going to be happening in the world where, we're going to take kind of a peaceful stance. We're going to take a wait and look stance. We're going to listen first before we actually go and act on things. Now, Mercury will be retrograde, so we might be able to snatch all of that back, and then just take action just in only to when Mercury's direct again to say, okay, we're going to take a softer approach this time. So we're going to see a lot of like openness and then closed and then open again. And I think that's going to be interesting wherever it is that we see that. Other thing is excessive people pleasing is something that can be difficult because you're trying to not rock the boat. And when you don't rock the boat, a lot of times people walk all over of you. There's no boundaries. There can be a lot of moral grandstanding. I'm posting this nice thing. I'm doing this nice thing because it's socially acceptable and it's right. And of course, right is right. So I'm not saying that there's anything against that, but if it's done, it just to not rock the boat, just so that people are not on your back and then there's nothing else behind that, then that's a little bit disingenuous. So this is your Astro Chat for this week. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it spoke to you in some ways, and it's supportive for you in this weeks to come, especially as we have our last retrograde coming up of this year. So that should be interesting. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. You know, you can always find me on Clubhouse on Wednesdays. I'm on Instagram. You can follow me on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter at The Wild Wahine. Thank you so much for tuning in, and aloha.